View from a balcony, building the blue lawn chairs next to the ice chest. Stuff 2 grams in the blunt that we just blew. Now I'm getting blown by a bitch who I don't know her name. Gold chain hanging, got a few in the room, but I don't wear them out. Only wear them in the house, cause I shine so bright that I wanna blind you.
Yes, however, he doesn't want to make him just a member of the root. He wants him to make a sleeper agent, the young man said, looking at him. A sleeper agent? Jiraiya asked, looking at him. Why would he want to make him a sleeper agent? He asked, looking at him. I'm not entirely sure, to be honest. Even with his inner circle, he has been very secretive about his certain plans. Although I have to take a guess, he wants to make Naruto a sleeping agent so he can attack Konoha and activate Naruto. Naruto could live a normal life to not knowing a thing until it happens. Then he would just suddenly turn on them. However, I cannot confirm anything of this. So at this moment, it's just a guess. Could say that all of this is nothing more than just a hunch that I have. The man said, looking at him. I see. Well, thank you for the information. You can leave now, Jiraiya said, looking at the man. When he said this, the man nodded and walked away of the building. Jiraiya sighed and picked up the bottle of sake he had put down and think more about later. For now, Sasuke, I'm free now, he said, calling out the female with Naruto. The blonde was certainly holding a fox known as Kitsune in his arms. Great kid, you found your pet now. Let's go before I get lectured about not bringing you to the office immediately, the man said, looking at him. Naruto nodded and followed the man. They walked through behind the woods and came to the clearing. When they did, Naruto saw a massive waterfall, which a rather large lake that formed around it in front of him. However, he was a little surprised to see that there was a small boat on the edge of the lake. He was even more surprised when he watched the man get on the boat. Well, what are you waiting for? We don't have all day, the man said, looking at him. To which Naruto ran up to the boat, saying a quick apologize. When he was in the fox following behind him, he sat on his lap. The man then started to make his way towards the waterfall, but as he did, he couldn't help to find himself staring at the fox. That was Naruto. You know, kid, that's a little weird to be honest, he said, looking down on the blonde in front of him. What is it? Naruto asked, a little confused. The fact that you have a pet fox, you said that it just blonde with you in the short time span of one day. The fox never form a bond with the people unless they are born and they grow up with people. Yet here you are with a wild fox sleeping on your lap. It's just little unsettling. It's all. The man said, looking at him. Really? Naruto asked, looking at the male in front of him. He then thought about it, realizing that all of his life he never seen a fox inside of Konoha. He had no idea why that was, but he recalled someone making a call once because of a fox was spotted in the park. He avoided the park for the rest of the day because he recalled in a magazine once the fox are extremely dangerous and can cost people their lives. I guess you're right. It is a little odd now that I think about it, Naruto said, looking at him. A taller figure said nothing as he walked in front of the boat and used a stick to bring a boat to stop. Yes, to stop just before it meets the waterfall. He then put his hand out in front of him and flashed through the series and hand signs. When he did, Naruto saw a blue symbol appear on his hand. as well as something that made his eyes grow in amazement. The waterfall began to part. The waterfall literally split open right down to the middle, revealing a huge village behind. Well, who did you do that? Naruto asked, looking at the man. You'll understand in a few weeks, kid. I'm sure you'll find out one way or another, the man said as he took the pail and pushed the boat through the waterfall. When he made it through once again, used a paddle to stop the boat and stood there the waterfall used to be. He then, like before, flashed through a series of hand signs, and a symbol of his hands appeared, and the waterfall began to close. After it did, the man from before once again grabbed the paddle and once again began to grow towards the village. As he was heading, Naruto realized something as he turned to the man in front of him. Um, what village is this exactly? Naruto asked, looking at him. Isn't it obvious? The elderly man asked, looking at the small blonde in front of him. Naruto then scratched the back of his head and looked at him. Not really, he said, looking up at the taller man. When the elderly man heard this, he sighed and looked at the small children in front of him. Well, we are in Togia, the taller figure said, looking at him. Really? But Togia, that's in the land of water. Naruto looking at him. Well, yeah, where else would it be? What's the matter, kid? You look like you have seen a ghost, the man said, looking down at him. I'm in the lands of water. I'm in the land of water. I'm somehow got into the land of fire to the lands of water in one day. How did this happen? Naruto thought as he looked down to the fox in front of him. However, he was brought out of his thoughts as he felt a boat come to a stop. He then looked and saw the man in front of him already off the boat. Come on, I need to take you to see the Shibiki. He's the one that decided whether or not you get to stay, the man said, looking at him. Naruto then nodded and started to follow him behind the male in front of him. As they were walking down the streets, Naruto saw a bunch of people. However, he noticed something that made him rather happy. None of these people was glaring at him. They were smiling at him. Their eyes weren't filled with hate. No one was whispering behind his back. They just looked happy to see him. However, as they were walking down to the streets, a female landed in front of him. She had long blonde hair and came down to her hips. The light blue eyes. Who's this, Zero? She asked, looking at the male in front of her. Just a kid I found in the village. He just wants to join, so I'm taking him to Shibiki, the man said, looking at the female in front of him. She then sighed and looked at him. No, you're going back the front of the gates to patrol the village. I'm taking him to see Shibiki, the girl said, looking at him. I looked at this kid and his pet and planned to take full responsibility for him. Now let's go to take him to Shibiki so he can become an official citizen of Turaki. The male said, looking at him. Either you leave or I'll tell Shibiki that you've been drinking or your patrol again. The female said, looking at him. Alright, take it easy now. Need to go get hostile. Look, if it takes the kid to Shibiki means that much to you, then I'll let you take him. He said, looking at her. It doesn't now. leave and get back to your patrolling the village, the female said, looking at him with a smirk of victory on her face. As she watched the man walk away, she looked at the young blonde in front of her. All right, little guy, what's your name? She asked, looking at him. My name is Naruto, Naruto Uzumaki, the blonde said, looking at her. Naruto, an odd name, but I like it, she said, looking at him. Thanks, I guess, Naruto said, looking at her. So, where your parents, little guy? She asked, looking at him. When she asked this, saw the young boy gets visibly upset. I never knew my parents, Naruto said, looking at her. Oh, sorry. Well, who takes care of you? Your aunts or uncles, or maybe your grandpa? Here with you, she asked, looking at him. Naruto then hung his head down and nodded his head side to side and responds, I've never had a family. It's always been me, or should I say, it's always just been me, he said, looking at her. When he said this, an older female felt a little bad for the male in front of her. Alright, well, let's take you to see Shibiki, the blonde said, as she stood in front of a full height and began to walk down to the streets. As they did, Naruto saw a large tree in the middle of the village. What is that? Naruto asked, looking at the large. I'll explain later, but to put it simply, that's where everything important is. But our base operation into that large tree, she said, looking at him. When Naruto heard this, Naruto turned his head aside, looked at her. Why would that be operation? Well, that's just the thing, because the tree is large. Like on the other side, the most people can't see the village on a lot of water for our water specialist to work with, she said, looking at him. However, we are careful to avoid something like this that from happening. We wouldn't want something like that happening to our base, she said, looking at him. Oh, I see. Well, kind of cool, I guess, Naruto said, looking at the female in front of him. I guess it's a little neat, she said. As she and Naruto approached the large tree, as they did, Naruto noticed the door was made of metal. As she opened it, Naruto got a little nervous. Alright, let's go. We won't want to make Shibiki wait now, would we? She said as she walked in. When she did, Naruto followed close behind her, and the tree head up to the steps. Once they come in front of the door, she stopped and looked at Naruto and the fox that had been following behind him. Alright, well, first off, you mind leaving your fox out here? Shibiki gets scared kind of easily, the female said, looking at him. No, I guess not, Naruto said as he turned to a small animal. Kisune, mind waiting out here for a while? I'll talk to Kisune. But Naruto asked, looking at the small creature. The fox then walked over to the side of the door and curled several times before it let out a loud yawn and started to go to sleep. Naruto then looked at the blonde female in front of him and walked behind her. When he saw the teen with the black hair sitting behind the desk, Shibiki, we have someone here who wants to become a citizen of the village, the female said, looking at him. Oh, I see. Can you leave us for just a moment? Shibiki asked, looking at the female in front of him. When he next what if of the Jinchuriki Alliance will come out tomorrow. Alright? Thanks.